Hi friends. Today I thought I will talk to you about rhythm. See, most commonly people ask me what is rhythm in editing or what is pace in editing. And of course, I think the most important thing is the pauses. So I thought I'll just give a brief on these three aspects in film editing. Rhythm is something which is happens during the process of editing, how you cut those shots and how you create a scene. So how does it happen? It happens because of the editor's gut feeling. I call it gut feeling, some people call it instinct, is how he selects a certain amount of a shot and puts it together to create the sequence. So I may decide at some point that the rhythm of this particular sequence, which is not a conscious decision, but it falls into place because of the performances. So the performances are very good and we are able to hold for a longer duration, then the rhythm will be slightly different in terms of the shots. But it's always between shots. So if I'm cutting a close of a person who's telling a small line, and then I'm cutting to a very huge reaction of the opposite character, suddenly the rhythm is slightly different and it doesn't match with the cutting of it. And if I'm cutting something which is like a montage, or if two people are looking at each other, which is more of a information that two people are in love or two people are angry and looking, we usually follow a very metric sort of editing, which is they are very equal in length. If they are not, then when it is supported by music or when you're watching, it doesn't fall into the rhythm of things. So this is what is rhythm. So when you're cutting a wide shot and I'm keeping only 1 second, and then I'm cutting a close up for about 8 seconds, and then I'm going back to another shot, suddenly the rhythm seems off. Why are we doing it? So somewhere you have to find your rhythm in the midst of those shots, and it's totally is depends on the particular story also, the rhythm, no? So each shot, how much to keep in this particular story will fall into place, and it's by intuition and what you see and what you get a sense of the story. So like this it keeps on moving and we create the whole sequence. So this is what is rhythm is editing, is when the shots, the relation between the shots function to control the space of the film. So this sort of one thing is what the rhythm is about. But then when you come to the pace, pace is totally the rhythm and the pace together make the story flow. So pace is something which is totally dependent on the subject matter which you have taken. So suppose if it's a slow paced film, it becomes slow paced only because of the subject. It can be because it's a it can be because of it's a horror film, it can be an emotional film, it can be something like that, the genre of the film. So the pace varies according to the genre of the film. So suppose there's an action film, obviously, if it's going to be a thriller and it's edge of a seat, the cuts also will increase the pace and accordingly move the story into. So all these things are totally dependent on a particular story, a particular film, a particular genre. So we have to be very careful that we can't adapt a same pace for all the stories that I'm encountering. No, it's not possible, because it demands, each one demands, if there is an anxiety, if there is a conflict, or if there is a tension, horror, mystery, then the pace has to be adapted to that, to give that space and time to get that emotion out. So all these things put together make the pace of the film. And coming to the pauses, I think pauses are the most underrated element by the editors in a film. You know why? Because see, what happens is when you're getting some stuff, some rushes, and you're editing it together, what happens is that you are trying to, you will have a whole dialogue scene and you're cutting across the lines. So then the whole editor's concentration is to get to this line to say. He says a line and the other guy says the line. So when this starts happening, what happens is you can sense, you can lose a sense of the timing of the pause, you know. See, so you have to sit back and think, what is it'll be in this real situation? If two people are fighting on the street, this will be the timing at which the shots, so the pause in between will be different. Even if it is not shot, it has to be shot like that first. But even if it's not shot, in the editing, it can be controlled, because two people are flying off the handle and they're fighting. Their sound or the dialogues can come one after another very quickly. But if it's going to be a situation where somebody is saying something very emphatic and the other person has to listen and he is subservient, so then he will listen to it and obey it and then answer. So like that, every situation has got a pause, and sometimes pauses at the right moment make the whole scene so alive. You know, I think it's a wonderful thing to create the pauses. This is at the scene level what I'm talking about. So suppose, for an example, a person comes. He is telling you a news, very bad news. The person receiving it need not immediately react and say, is that so? You know, you need that information to sink. Same as it sinks to the audience, which is the audience who's watching. So it's very dramatic thing has happened and he's coming and telling you, and I'm trying to, audience and the characters, it's sinking in, that feeling, that emotion is sinking in. So he will take some time to express himself and say, come out of it and say. So these things, an editor has to be very carefully looking into it when he's actually editing it. Sometimes when the shot is taken, I mean, when two shots are taken to be cut, so it can never, they may not have that space, but we can artificially create that space by giving some leeway in the top, at the head and tail of each shot, you know, so each situation. So what happens is it makes the emotion sink in, and it makes it very real also in a given, so which is obviously something which you see around you, feel around you, and come to a conclusion that this is how it would be in this situation, where it gives maximum impact to the audience. So I think these pauses are a great thing to keep in mind for editing. That is and pauses in the script or in the flow of things is another thing which you have to be careful about. What happens is sometimes at some sequences have so much of information that you're giving, you know, which is like you're cutting across so many shots, maybe an action sequence, and you go at a real fast pace and you arrive at a point which is a high and something happens. So after this, you have seen so much information on the screen or a television, you've seen so much information which you have gathered and you're like at your edge of your seat. Then the mind requires a little space to quieten down before you start another episode. So that pause is how much to give. I mean, you can give 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. So you will have to see the previous scene's impact and then give that pause. The pause can be a wide shot, or it can be the next scene beginning before it starts. You can't have a hard paced scene and immediately cut to the next dialogue. So before this information is coming to me as an audience and I'm able to enjoy it, the next thing comes off. The next thing comes off and diverts you from the feeling of feeling good about the previous scene. So this comes in during the process of screenplay editing, you know, the editing of the whole film. The initial pauses I was talking is in between the scenes. When each scene you're editing, you have to see how realistic it can be, the exchanges between two characters, between two shots. What is the pause? What is the gap you have to give? That is one. And in this, it is about the pauses required in the flow of a story. You know, you will have a whole very energetic sequence which will be happening, and then you move on to another energetic sequence, is going to be a little tiring on your brain. You have to think about these things. And even story, one chapter finishes and then the next chapter starts. So what happens at that point? You feel that you need a certain pause in the proceeding so that you fully imbibe that emotion, and you're, oh god, this has happened, and then you start off a new story. So this is, I think, very important. So I just wanted to tell you about this rhythm in a scene, and the pace of a film, and also about the pauses, which is important, I think. And I think next in my next one of my classes, lots of people have asked questions. I'll try to answer each question specifically in one session. Thank you.